This is all over the news, and this is an inflammatory headline that is not wrong.
Yes.
But this is kind of getting people into a tizzy, and I really want to break it down.
Yes.
So this is a Trump policy. So, Rubio is obviously involved, right? The U.S. will aggressively revoke visas of Chinese students, okay? Now, let's look at this real quick.
Okay.
It's not unfair. It's not an unfair statement, but I think people aren't looking into it enough.
Yes.
The media's all over. It's on every news outlet, right? I don't think it's being reported necessarily unfairly, but I think I actually do think
it's being reported unfairly.
My point is, I don't think that they're getting facts wrong. I just think that we have to
very selective
Yes,
facts.
we have to break it down actually what this means, right? So it looks inflammatory. It's like, this is xenophobic. Look at what South China Morning Post is saying. Xenophobic U.S. ban,
Yeah.
So it makes it sound like the U.S. is about to ban all Chinese people's visas if they're students studying in America.
Yeah.
That's what it really sounds like if you're a headline reader, right?
Yeah.
And that's just simply not the case. In fact, this is very important to break down. So let's look at this. So people are talking about this, Harvard's under more scrutiny for international students and all this kind of stuff. But what I see happening is a lot of the sentiment that's going around right now and people that are really against this are actually mirroring Chinese propaganda from the state.
This is the Chinese embassy. Now, we have seen, this is a big problem for China because when they go all out like this, and they have, unfortunately, my job and his job is to look at Chinese propaganda every day. And it sucks. It's so dumb, okay? But one thing that we've noticed is that all state media channels and social media have been blasting this. It's unfair for Chinese visas, be like students to be scrutinized. It's unfair. And okay, we actually have a little translation here. This is the Chinese embassy in the US, one of their Twitter posts. I'd like to read this is the official Chinese embassy says. Regarding the US State Department's statement that it will revoke visas for Chinese students studying in the US, China firmly opposes this political and discriminatory practice of the US. Now, guys, they're going to try and pull on the old racist
we see
string.
Inklings of this again, like what they did with Stop Asian Hate.
Yeah, exactly. This move by the US will seriously undermine the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese students studying in the US. It's nice to know that Chinese students have legitimate rights in the US.
Yeah.
Because they actually do. If you're in America, you have rights. You do not have legitimate rights if you're in China. No. The US students in China don't have any rights, right? And will further damage the US's own international image and national credibility. The Chinese embassy in the United States has lodged solemn representations to the US side at the first opportunity, urging the US government to correct its mistakes immediately and effectively protect the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese students studying in the United States.
This outrage attack has two purposes.
Yes.
One, it's to cause division in the US so that people argue about this issue and they're distracted. Number two is because if they lose their potential spies, then they can't get this technology transfer. We'll talk about why that's so important in a second.
One thing I would like to say, as somebody who has, for the majority of my adult life, after the age of 25, had to live in other countries on visas. A visa is not a right. It's a privilege. When you apply for a visa, you are asking a country, may I study in your country? May I work in your country? May I, marry someone in your country? Whatever it is, you're asking permission, and they look at you and they go through all the stuff and they say, yes, you can. All right? Because, you seem to be all right, or you pass a certain amount of checks. And, being a South African, there's a lot of checks. I always have to provide a lot of information, background checks and bank account statements and everything before I can even go on like a tourist visa somewhere. But it doesn't mean that it's a God-given right. Okay? If you're on a visa, it's because you've been granted a privilege to be there. So you're different. You're not the same as a local person. You cannot claim the same rights and stuff. You're a guest when you're on a visa. And when you're a guest, you got to behave correctly, But now the Chinese government is now pretending as if it's not a privilege. It's a right for Chinese students to be able to go and study in America. It's a right for them to be able to go to America. They've got it wrong. It's not. It's a privilege, not a right. It's like a driver's license, It's not a right to have a driver's license. It's something you have to earn. You have to pass tests for it, right? Anyway, you can see here, China Perspective, which, by the way, this Twitter account is linked to Chinese state media. It is actually, remember, we found out it's CRI. It is Chinese state media. But, of course, you wouldn't know that because it just looks like a Twitter account, right? China firmly opposes the U.S. decision to revoke Chinese student visas.
They're blasting this everywhere.
This is from CGTN, which is, the main Chinese state media. They've got, look,
The English
they're getting like random people they're interviewing to like, oh, how do Harvard students view Trump's suspension of
trying to get people riled up.
International students, say revoking international student, tragic mistake. If you go to we went to their main page just today, and half the things are about the student visa thing.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get us out of there so you can see. China slams U.S. for unjustly revoking visas of Chinese students. Harvard grads, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. It's all about the student visas, the international student visas. And you can find now hundreds and hundreds of videos and articles on all of Chinese state media all about that.
But what they do in this propaganda is they say the partnership between China and America, no matter what happens politically, it's not fair to the students, right? Because we need an even trade of American students that can study in China and Chinese students that study in America. That's our partnership, right?
Yes.
We'll get into why they care so much in a second,
Yes.
but I just wanted to break it down in graphical form so that people can see what cooperation looks like.
Yes.
Do you know how many students, U.S. students, there are in China?
800.
About 800. Do you know how many Chinese students are in the U.S.?
Around 30,000.
300,000.
Sorry, what? Sorry, 300. Why am I saying 30? I meant 300,000. I'm thinking somewhere.
277,000, almost 300,000 students. It's a
300,000.
It's a tiny.
That's like a
little
country.
Sliver.
That's
it's
like
Iceland,
dude. Yeah, it's like a country's population of Chinese students are in America.
Iceland's population lives in America as a Chinese student.
Yes,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's insane.
Yeah. So just look at the graph. You can see what cooperation looks like.
Yeah.
There's no cooperation here.
And also, look, here's the thing. Chinese students come to America. They study in the top universities. They study in top fields to gain knowledge to take back to China. Americans who go to China to study, they might study Chinese language, something along those lines. They're not learning anything they can bring back. They're not like,
unless they become a Chinese teacher or they do foreign policy. Or something.
Exactly. Something along. But what I'm saying is they're not going there to get some new technology to bring back to America.
By the way, this is not being xenophobic. This is just how
factual.
It works. Like, if Chinese people come back, let's go into why this is so nefarious. We're dancing around this.
Yeah.
This is bad.
Yes.
Let's stop dancing around this.
Okay,
so
we don't need to.
If we look at this, right, you have to understand we have to break down why China would care about this so much.
Yeah.
So we wanted to harken back to something that happened, a couple years ago?
Yeah, I believe so.
In Harvard.
But I think it was a year ago.
The university in question right now.
Yes, Harvard, right?
Let's have a look. Let's have a little refresh.
Yeah, we had a diplomat come from China to do a speech.
Yes, a CCP official.
Yes.
You cultivate the illusion of a prosperous China, but your hands are painted with blood. You robbed the Hong Kongers of the most fundamental freedoms and devastated their democracy. Now, in my country, Taiwan, you sought to do the same. China, where people die! 80% of Tibetan children are forced into colonial boarding schools that are aimed to destroy entire Tibetan people's existence. Shame on shameful! Shame on shameful! Ukrainian laborers are locked in concentration camps. They are subject to rape, torture, forced organ harvesting, sterilization. Shame on shameful! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Turkestan! You have blood on your hands! You have blood on your hands! Guilty of genocide! Guilty of genocide! Guilty of genocide! Guilty of genocide! Shame on shameful! Shame on shameful! Shame on shameful!
So those are anti-CCP protesters. I'm trying to spread awareness about the Uyghur genocide, the Hong Kong crackdown that happened.
Yeah, Taiwanese, I believe Taiwanese and Hong Kong
And
citizens.
Tibetans,
Yeah. So here's the thing that we wanted to point out. This guy who dragged out the Taiwanese protester who was saying, China's taking the legitimate rights of Hong Kongers away. This guy who just got up and grabbed and dragged her out is a Chinese student from overseas. Yeah. He's not a security guard. He's not part of the faculty there. He doesn't have any special right. He's just a student.
Wait till you see. We'll read you something.
Yeah.
Wait till you see how much power the CCP wields over American citizens and Americans in America.
Yeah.
You want to know who's winning the influence and power battle? Wait till you see what happened. A legitimate protest against the CCP.
Now, as much as I personally have a distaste for the agitator protesters, I acknowledge they have the right to do it.
Of course.
Right? And you have security guards to take them out. And it should be the security guards taking them out, not a Chinese student who, by the way, his family is in the CCP and high officials in the Chinese government who's there. It actually turns out that Chinese students studying in America have more rights than anyone else.
Because they have CCP connections.
Yeah.
The CCP has so much power over the U.S. and are able to mobilize students like this to shut down dissenting voices in America, where people have the First Amendment.
Yeah. So what happened here?
So this is during that protest thing, right? They actually put those protesters on disciplinary.
So the protesters got suspended, temporarily, but they got suspended and were put on probation. So it says they placed 3 undergraduates on a disciplinary probation for protesting Chinese ambassador Xie Feng. So, why the Chinese ambassador is giving a speech in Harvard anyway? Who knows?
Why are you there? Why do you have CCP officials giving speeches in America?
Yeah.
Answer me that. Why are they here?
Yeah, why? You don't see Ambassador Burns or whatever going into Tsinghua to go give a speech about how great America is to the students in China.
Yeah, he'll have to go to speeches and stuff. He's not going to be for soft power propaganda for America.
Yeah, exactly.
And talk about why China's bad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's never going to happen.
Nope.
Yeah,
Burns was a good one. All right.
A student at the Harvard Graduate School of Education who was filmed physically removing one of the protesters from the event did not face any disciplinary action from the school. So the kids that protested got in trouble. The CCP-connected Chinese citizen student
who assaulted
who took her out.
That's assault.
Yeah, didn't receive any disciplinary action because you have more rights if you have parents in the CCP in America as a Chinese citizen than an American in America.
Yeah,
you do.
You do.
You absolutely do.
It's insane. I mean, at the end of the day, this guy, like I said, physically assaulted her, dragged her out. Not only did he not get any disciplinary action, Harvard sent him an apology letter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because he's powerful.
Yeah. So you see, what happened was after this, of course, the internet was like, screw this. Okay.
Yeah. This is Molinar from the Select Committee on the CCP. Harvard is punishing brave students who spoke out against the CCP's human rights abuses. I agree.
Yeah.
Which not only letting the student who assaulted them off scot-free, but handing him an apology.
Yeah. Because what happened was people started to look into the guy because, the video was going around. And after the event, a flurry of social media posts publicized the identity of the student, as well as his brother and parents, who allegedly hold top government positions in the CCP.
Gee, what a surprise.
Yeah.
What a surprise.
Why do we have students that are connected to high-up officials in the CCP over here?
So here's the deal.
Enforcing, by the way, CCP censorship.
Yes, continue this. Because in your visa interview, when you come to America, you have to disclose if you have a connection to the Communist Party. So why is everyone getting upset when people that maybe are connected to the Communist Party might face some extra scrutiny? Because unlike ridiculous, crazy headlines that are going to blow this out of proportion, let's read the law.
Yes.
Shall we read it?
Here it is.
This is from the White House.
New visa policies put America first, not China. This is a press statement. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State.
Okay, so go to the next slide so we can zoom in a little bit.
Okay, we're going to zoom in on this.
I want to highlight these key parts because these headlines will have you believe, and the CCP most importantly, will have you believe that this new thing is going to cancel all Chinese student visas.
Yeah.
It's racist.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else to it.
Yeah.
But no, under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. State Department will work with the Department of Homeland Security to aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. We'll also revise visa criteria to enhance scrutiny of all future visa applicants from the People's Republic of China and Hong Kong. So there's two things here. If you are connected to the CCP, you're not supposed to be here anyway.
Yep.
Number two, if you're studying in a critical field of technology that China wants to use for their military to kill Americans.
Yes.
Because that's quite literally what they're doing.
Because remember, these Chinese students that are studying here, they're a student. When you study abroad, it's because you're going to return home. You're not studying abroad because you want to be a part of that society. No. You're studying to learn and gain knowledge and then take it back with you. So why would you allow a Chinese student who's going to go back to China to learn how to, inflict the maximum amount of damage on your country?
In a critical
field,
in
a critical field.
I have zero problem with Chinese students at universities. I think that's fine. Yep. This also thinks it's fine.
Yes.
This is not banning Chinese students.
Nope.
If you are connected to the CCP, you shouldn't be here anyway.
Yep.
That is an enemy government of my country.
Yeah.
That's just how it is, right? They will leverage those people whether they like it or not. I don't think the CCP connected students are at fault anyway. I don't think they're like red-blooded communists that want to overthrow America or something.
Yep.
But China can leverage those people, right?
Big time.
That's supposed to be disclosed in a visa interview. Number two, if you're in a critical field with an adversarial nation, China doesn't let an American go to a military school in China where they're researching new military technology.
Biotechnology, new COVID strains.
To go work together hand in hand and take all the information back to intelligence back home.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you kidding me that this is like not a tit, is like a tit for tat thing?
Sure.
This is ridiculous.
Those 800 students in China learning I don't know, like just how to do shadow puppets or whatever. They're not a threat to China, right? But the 300,000 students here are under the control of the CCP. You can see they've got CCP officials' sons and daughters keeping an eye on everyone, keeping them in line, censoring anyone, physically removing somebody if they're trying to shout a slogan.
Well, let's actually look at some evidence.
Okay.
Because there's enough speculation.
Yeah.
Right? I just want to know, why is this bad? Because it's not revoking everything, right? Here's the concerns. The U.S. government, including State Department and FBI, have voiced serious concerns about Chinese exploitation and theft of U.S. research intellectual property. Where do you think this happens? It starts in the universities.
Yes.
There are reports of widespread intelligence gathering campaign at universities, including Stanford. What do? They target research. U.S. universities are considered high-value targets in China's broader campaign of intellectual property theft and intelligence gathering. This is particularly true in critical fields like AI and robotics. What is the economic impact? Every single year, $225 billion to $600 billion of hard research and intellectual property theft leaves America, leaves the American economy, and hands it to an adversarial nation that is preparing for war with my country, hands it on a silver platter.
And you see this happen all the time, where a company or a university in America will pour billions of dollars into researching something, right? R&D is very expensive, and it involves
China can't make anything.
Yeah, so they let's say they research a new chemical, like we remember that Coke can situation where the secret formula of the coating, the BPA, non-BPA coating of the inside of a Coke can. So it took billions or millions and hundreds of millions of dollars to develop that.
Yes.
Okay? China didn't develop it, but they stole it. Right? Somebody who was in the company or somebody who's in the research department steals that technology that has been researched in America, takes it back, and then they just produce it and sell it cheap. So you've lost all that money, all that research and development, and of course, all the profits you would have made selling it. You can't because China's undercutting you now.
Now attribute that same logic to military technology.
Exactly.
Because that's what China's trying to do.
Look at China's military. Every single military vehicle is a knockoff of something else.
Seriously. They don't make anything.
No, there's not one plane or armored vehicle or tank or anything in China that's not just a carbon copy of something from the US or Germany or some other country or Russia.
How do they get it, by the way? This involves civilians to acquire information, such as research conclusions, methodologies, software, and lab workflows. They're getting people's scratch notes. They're stealing people's scratch notes in labs, like their workflow. They're stealing those so they can put it in big data in China and attribute and get some sort of conclusions out of it, right? Because their research is so lacking. Right?
So leveraging scholarship programs. Organizations like the Chinese Scholarship Council, CSC, which funds Chinese students studying in the US, are said to require students to submit situational reports about their research to Chinese diplomatic missions. We see this all the time. Also, these students, scholars, associations are horrible, okay? They infiltrate all of the schools and universities. They keep an eye on the students. They're directly connected to the embassy. So they report on if there's a Chinese student who goes to see a Free Tibet thing or it talks about Taiwan or something, they report it directly to the embassy and then they'll put pressure on the person's family and on them. They're like little spy organizations running all over the country here.
It's a lot of Chinese students come to America because they want freedom.
Yeah, students and scholars associations. Yeah.
They want to come here, but they are pressured because look, coercion. Chinese nationals and family members in China may be coerced into sharing sensitive information. Go to the next thing. This gets very important.
Yeah.
It's not that it's a possibility.
Yes.
It's that it's an actual reality.
It's
in
a law.
2017, China made a law called the National Intelligence Law. Now, it sounds innocuous, but what it actually is, and I won't read through this whole thing, what I'll tell you is that China says that even if you are abroad and you have access to key research, it's not that they'll pay you to get it, they will, but you have to get it.
It's the law.
You or your family will be arrested or pressured in China if you don't capitulate to it.
It's quite literally, even if you're a tourist and you're walking around and you happen to see like a military thing and you take a photo.
You have to, if they want it, you have to give it
Or you
up.
come across a piece of paper on the ground or something, like you have to give it to China if it's of any kind of intelligence value.
Yes.
It's a law.
This,
So
again,
that unfortunately encompasses all students.
all, whether they like it or
Yes,
not.
and that's the thing. You can't throw blame at Chinese students who legitimately want to learn. And they're here for legitimate reasons. But they are beholden by Chinese law to spy for China if they demand it.
Right. So is it such a weird stretch to put additional scrutiny on the visas of Chinese official and Chinese CCP member tied people on those students and people in key industries because we've lost trillions of dollars at this point of research? Is it that crazy?
Yeah.
We're not advocating for canceling all student visas.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I hope Chinese people get to experience America.
Yeah, I do think it's a little unfair that there's so many of Chinese students here, but so few American students in China. I've always seen this as, it should be reciprocal.
Right.
I think there should be reciprocal programs. Like exchange student should literally mean exchange. Like, okay, one goes there, one comes here. Right. I think there should be 800 students in America right now.
Right.
From China.
Yes.
Or 300,000 Americans in China.
Right.
Yeah.
Just so I don't rip through some.
Yeah, we have to read.
Evidence.
We have to read all of these.
A Harvard University professor and two Chinese nationals, Yang Qingye and Zhao Songjong, were indicted for attempted theft of biological research. Dr. Lieber was a participant in the 1,000 Talents Plan. That's a.
By the way, do you know that the Dr. Lieber has now gone to China? Is now working for a Chinese university.
Are you serious?
After he was released.
While actively accepting the National Institutes of Health, so that's a federal department, and Department of Defense funding, a federal department. Yeah, a lieutenant of the PLA compiled information on U.S. military projects for the CCP. Zheng committed the theft of 21 biological research vials to promote Chinese projects. Next.
Can I just say, they took taxpayer money.
Yeah.
So, you and I, we pay a ton of tax.
Yes.
Americans pay a lot of tax.
Yeah.
It's a big gripe that most Americans have. You pay a lot of tax. Yeah. Guess where that money went? It went to helping China develop...
The PLA.
Well, it went to the People's Liberation Army.
Your enemy.
They stole it.
Yes.
You paid for them to take technology back to China.
Yes.
That Charles Lieber guy, like I said, he did go to China now. He's a complete sellout.
I didn't follow up on that.
Yeah, it's fairly recent.
Yang Junshu, an MSS operative, that's like China's CIA.
That is the CIA of China.
Attempted to recruit experts employed by leading American aviation companies to China, often under the guise of giving a presentation at a university. Where have we seen this before?
Oh, yeah.
This is a common thing. It's like we're going to use the guise of education in the university system, and actually this is all about technology transfer.
Yeah, so May 2020, Song Guozheng, a professor of internal medicine at Ohio State University and Pennsylvania State University, pled guilty to making false statements to federal authorities as part of a scheme to use over $4 million in grants from the NIH to develop China's expertise in rheumatology and immunology through his undisclosed partnership with the Chinese university controlled by the Chinese government.
Next.
Again, $4 million of your taxpayer money went straight to China.
Yep.
You funded them.
Yep.
This is not okay.
This isn't a presidential thing, by the way. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, what are you supporting Trump's policy?" Absolutely support Trump's policy here. I also supported some of Biden's policies. This is apolitical from domestic politics. This is about China.
Political. We are somewhere in the middle, and we only care about how China is rinsing the American public, stealing their tax money, stealing the IP, and, it's unfair. It has to stop. So July 2020, So Tong-ang, a University of Arkansas professor, was indicted for wire fraud for his acceptance of U.S. contracting funds related to NASA and the Air Force while being employed by Chinese entities. Again, stealing your taxpayer money fraudulently to give to China. January 2022, a University of Arkansas professor, Simon Tong-ang, pleaded the same thing, making materially false and fictitious statement and representation to an FBI special agent for failing to disclose his 24 Chinese patents to the university and to the FBI when interviewed.
Next.
They say China's like putting out all these patents. Well, it's pretty easy because they steal them and then just patent them in China.
Yes.
So they steal existing patents and then they patent them in China. And guess what?
This is another NIH grant, by the way, $1.75 million. Established a business in China promoting a product he created using the NIH grant, by the way.
Yeah, so take all the taxpayer money.
Join the CCP program, the Thousand Talents program.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
There we go. Taking your taxpayer money to develop things for China. It's ridiculous. Okay.
The DOJ brought charges against 5 University of Michigan students last year. After a sergeant major encountered them at Camp Grayling in 2023, the students had cameras with them and they were discovered by the U.S. National Guard. They were conducting a massive training operation at the site with Taiwanese military members. What do you think they were doing there? U.S. and Taiwanese military cooperation. What do you think the Chinese
I like how they said, they
there?
were on vacation or something.
Yeah.
But they flew there. They weren't from that area. They flew there to go and take these photos and drone shots and what have you. And then they were like, no, we're just taking like holiday photos. But the only pictures on their devices was of the military training.
Yep.
So they were all Chinese nationals attending the University of Michigan as part of the school's joint program with a Shanghai-based university. An FBI official wrote in the complaint, noting some of them had taken photos of Camp Grayling's military installations and operations. Again, it's like, oh, we're just doing like a cultural exchange. It's cooperation. Well, okay, where are the Americans in Shanghai spying on the bases and taking photos of their military operations? Yeah. There's no American students doing that in China.
No.
It's a one-way street with China.
Yep.
Take but never give.
Correct. Chinese nationals breached Key West military base. 2 Chinese nationals were graduate students at the University of Michigan pleaded guilty in 2020 after they caught illegally entering and photographing a defense infrastructure at Naval Air Station in Key West, Florida.
University of Minnesota student Feng Yongshi, DJ Shi over here, a Chinese national studying at the University of Minnesota, was convicted in the U.S. District Court of the Eastern District of Virginia last year of unlawfully using a drone to take photos of naval bases in Norfolk, Virginia. Shi was sentenced to 6 months in prison and a year of supervised release, and the Biden administration revoked his visa in response to the charges. ICE announced in May that it deported him to China.
Next. This is all linked down below. Every source, by the way.
Ji Chaochun, a Chinese national and one-time student at the Illinois Institute of Technology, was sentenced to 8 years in prison after he was convicted by a jury in 2022 of attempting to commit espionage and theft of trade secrets. Ji was found to have gathered information on defense contractors, engineers, and others as part of a broader effort by high-level Chinese intelligence officials to obtain inside access to U.S. technology advancements.
This is the Select Committee on the CCP.
Very good.
This is, a fantastic organization.
Yep.
Chairman Moulinar demands transparencies from universities on national security risks posed by Chinese nationals in STEM programs. These fuel the Chinese military.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why this is so important. Right now, the current leadership in China, the Xi Jinping leadership, said that China has to lead in key industries by 2025. He said this a while ago.
Yeah.
If they don't achieve that, then the leadership fails, and that never happens in China.
Yes.
It has to be completed. So why do you think they're trying to step up so much technology transfer, theft, spies, everything you can think of? China's aggressively hacking all the American infrastructure. Yeah. They're hacking telecoms. They're doing everything in their power. It's nuts if you actually look into how much they're doing to the U.S. right now aggressively.
Yeah.
They're doing this because they have to finish that 2025 goal, made in China 2025. They have to finish it. Yeah. So they're going to do everything in their power to get that done. Right?
Correct.
Is it such a crime to not revoke random visas, but to put extra scrutiny on maybe China intelligence and CCP connected students?
Yeah.
Is it not crazy if you don't do that?
Yeah, no, and I hear they're talking about taking a look at social media accounts and stuff, which I think is a smart thing, because a lot of Chinese students, they hide behind the language barrier, and they will post things on military websites, you know, like Guangzhou, whatever those websites, and social media accounts, and they'll post pictures and information about America, what they're doing there. And they just do it out in the open because nobody's reading it because of the language barrier, and they've never been under scrutiny. They'll post on their WeChat about, you know, things that are very anti-America, you know, that type of thing.
Well, anti-America is whatever.
Yeah,
We're talking about like, military secrets,
yeah,
like
from
things that are
from that
privileged,
point of view, you know.
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of scrutiny of social media is probably a good idea. So the Chinese Communist Party has established a well-documented systemic pipeline to embed researchers in leading U.S. institutions, providing them direct exposure to sensitive technologies with dual-use military applications, said Chairman Molinar. America's student visa system has become a Trojan horse for Beijing, providing unrestricted access to our top research institutions and posing a direct threat to our national security. If left unaddressed, this trend will continue to displace American talent, compromise research integrity, and fuel China's technological ambitions at our expense. And that's the real thing over here. We hear about this every year. I'm sure everybody hears that, oh, we lose trillions of dollars to IP theft. How do you think we're doing that? Is that just a fact that we have to accept? Do we have to sit back and say, oh, well, it's going to happen anyway, or are we going to do something about it? What do? You go after the source. Where's the stuff being stolen from? It's from these research programs. How is China getting access to this information, this IP? How are they stealing it? This is one of the biggest ways, is through these students.
They have a law, the National Intelligence Law, that makes them do it.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice.
Yep.
So why not scrutiny?
Yeah. Needs some scrutiny.
I don't get it.
Don't
be against something just because you're against something.
Yes.
If you're against Trump, right, it doesn't mean you have to be against this. If you're against Biden, it doesn't mean you have to be against his actions with China either.
Yeah.
Right? This is apolitical, guys.
It is.
This is much needed scrutiny.
Everybody wants to tiptoe around it because they're worried about being called racist.
Sure.
Here's the thing. It's not racist to want to protect your national interest and security. It's nothing about race. It's about the system. I'll tell you one thing. People from Taiwan are Chinese ethnically.
Yes.
Okay? Same thing.
They don't need scrutiny.
No.
You know why? Because their government's not trying to destroy my country.
When last did you see Taiwan stole intellectual property? It's the other way around, right?
Yes.
Taiwan's a leader in technology. Yes. So it's not about race, because Taiwanese students do come study. In fact,
South
you can
Koreans,
actually add
Japanese,
something.
Yes.
Yes.
Mongolians.
It doesn't matter. It's not about race. It's about a nation. The Chinese government, who wants to steal and does steal. It's not that they want to, they do. There's so much proof. They're trying to steal. They're trying to undermine the West, not just America, Australia, Canada, the UK, everywhere. They're trying to steal everything they can because they want to grow China into a more powerful country. They want China's military to be top. They want China to be the top. And we tiptoe around this, we might hurt someone's feelings while China's saying that it's ready for war with America, while China's teaching its children, and we've shown you the footage over and over again,
to hate America.
To say that they want to kill Americans.
They're teaching that in school.
Yeah, they teach that to school. Isn't that racist?
That's
Isn't that xenophobic?
At least evil.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like,
we come in all flavors, us Americans.
But I believe in equality for all. And I also believe that, you have to treat people in an equal manner. The way that they treat you, you have to treat them in the same manner. So if someone's nice, you're nice. If someone's bad, you got to be bad back. And China's being bad all the time. And all we're doing is tiptoeing around and being nice. I do think this is the right move.
Keep in mind, and I just want to finish this off by saying, I hope you guys understand this issue more.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that China right now is trying to divide you on this issue.
Yes.
Particularly if you're against other things that maybe the Trump administration does, right? They're going to try to leverage this.
Yep.
Because they know that they can kind of pull this, right? This can be like a divisive thing. And then they can pull the race card and you'll see them. They're going to go through the whole entourage.
Yes.
They're going to go through everything to try to get you to not support this, right?
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind. It's a foreign influence campaign from the Chinese government to make sure they get to hold on to this trillions of dollars of IP theft and research theft.
Yes.
They need this or else their leader is going to be very upset.
Correct.
Right.
I just want to say, having studied in a Chinese university myself, I studied Chinese in the Shenzhen University. There were a lot of checks I had to go through to get my student visa to study there. Criminal background check, They had to, get whatever, like recommendations, check my previous, educational record, all that stuff. There's a huge amount of checks. And obviously being South African, there were even more for me to actually go and study there. And they kept a close eye on us, They had CCP members in the university, and their entire job was to keep an eye on the foreigners, and our movements. What are we doing? What are we saying? They deported a guy who was making critical posts online about China. This is just the way it is. China does that. But unfortunately, the same is not done here. Well, I should say fortunately, because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
But, when you're dealing with an underhanded government, you have to treat them with distrust. You can't be so open. China's a low-trust society. America's a high-trust society.
Yep.
And unfortunately, you'll get taken advantage of. It's just like a con man taking advantage of a trusting old woman.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yep.
So
anyway, let's finish this up. This is just an important thing from Nathan Law.
This is completely related to this, because it's not just about IP theft. It's not just about stealing of secrets. It's about how the Chinese Communist Party, through other students that are connected to the Communist Party of China, police and harass and intimidate legitimate Chinese students that are just trying to learn.
Yes.
So if you've got a student here who's learning to be a nurse or something, or, whatever they're doing, and they're in the university, they're studying whatever course they are, the other Chinese students that are connected to the CCP are there to intimidate them.
To commit transnational repression.
Yes. So he has a little speech we wanted to play for you here.
So I've been doing a lot of talks, especially in 2019, 2020, in the US and in the UK. And there were multiple times where Chinese students came to me and said that they could not attend my talk, could not express their support because they knew that they were being surveilled. I would say that it's not a secret. Like, even if it is, it's an open secret where I think there's a decent amount of students from China that they feel unsafe to express themselves. And that could lead to unfortunate events to their families and their visa and all sorts of things because of that. And I believe that schools are not properly handling these concerns. And there are obvious links to, for example, CSSA, like Chinese Students Scholar Association and Embassy, that they're orchestrating these actions. And if the school wanted to do something, they can definitely do something.
I remember you lift my spirit, with you high is all I'm feeling. Remember.
You're whipping a gay vampire. You're a Chinese woman, you're addicted to whipping a gay vampire, and your husband left you.
Yeah. 70 men in less than 2 hours, huh?
What the? That's cringe.
What? What? I don't know why I want to cry.
And he says, cry if you want to. Glancing at you, a hint of pain flashed across his eyes.
Okay. What's going on there?
Why accidental Nazi?
Well, he's a Nazi love interest, They look like women.
They literally all look like women.
I'll remember to keep my distance from you next time. Hold me.
Oh my gosh!
It didn't take long.